So LinkedIn is a product which Microsoft acquired a few years ago, and I came across this post on our programming subreddit. LinkedIn is actually abandoning migration to Azure, which is a cloud provider by Microsoft. And it seems funny because if you think about it, I would say Google and all its products, YouTube and everything should be on Google Cloud ideally. LinkedIn and everything should be on Azure, and AWS is of course like everything else is on AWS. Anyway, point is that LinkedIn, which is a Microsoft company, what I figured out from this article, as you can see, it writes it here about the migration which was supposedly announced in 2019 blog post. Let's see what this blog post is. So LinkedIn says in the blog post that the cloud holds the future for us, and we are confident that Azure is the right platform to build on years to come. Well, if you have been following, a little bit of hype on Twitter also, there is a movement by Basecamp and DHH, one of the founders of Hey.com and Basecamp, and that's the cloud exit, right? That these are the people who are saving tons of money by exiting the cloud, exiting AWS. So when you read this blog post, we don't get a lot of information. Over here, you can see it says that, however, by mid 2022, the cracks in LinkedIn migration strategy were beginning to show. In the memo last summer, LinkedIn CTO reportedly told the employees that LinkedIn was moving to a hybrid cloud model where some of the services are running in cloud and others in companies' dedicated data center. While this might not be directly related to cost, because the DHH tweet which I just showed you, that was more of a cost thing, right? What his claim is that their workload essentially has the same amount of headache and increased cost on cloud compared to off cloud. That is, they just owning their own servers. This seems like a slightly different variant where what I feel is that they are having trouble going from the off cloud model to the on cloud model system. That is why they are compromising with hybrid cloud model. As it turns out, while Azure scale may have presented a tantalizing opportunity at first, LinkedIn was having a hard time taking advantage of the cloud provider's software. Sources told CNBC that issues arose when LinkedIn attempted to lift and shift its existing software tools to Azure rather than refactor them to run on the cloud provider's ready-made tools. One of the examples which I can give you over here is that imagine, now this is a completely hypothetical scenario, but imagine that this is the case. Imagine that LinkedIn is running some variant of Postgres, right? It's running a Postgres system, or it's running some sort of database system. And when you go to a cloud provider like, I'm assuming AWS for now because I'm more familiar with AWS services. Let's say LinkedIn is running MongoDB, right? And you move to a system like AWS, which doesn't has complete compatibility with MongoDB, right? So AWS doesn't give you a managed MongoDB cloud. So what options do you have? The first one is that you spin a huge machine, EC2 or whatever, and then you just do the same thing which you were doing in your own server rack. Or what you can do is use native managed database, right? From AWS or any other player, whatever you're using, but which may not have this lift and shift thing, right? So this I think is important, because when you're working, on your own hardware, on your own systems, you might have created something which cloud either does not support directly, or you would have to, refactor it to run on the cloud infra in the best possible way. So that seems like that's what happened with a variety of services LinkedIn does. And I mean, LinkedIn is not a small company, right? It's a huge company, both in size and technology as well. LinkedIn Learning, I think, is also one of their products. I mean, at scale, I can understand like there are thousands of things which can go wrong. While I don't exactly know like if there was a make or break factor just because it's just too chaotic or too difficult to move, or is this more like it's not even worth it, right? So, I mean, if we have the same servers, technically speaking, moving to Azure also would result, I mean, the underlying hardware is still the hardware, right? You're not magically just pushing something in the cloud and it's just disappearing. So why move from one hardware to another when the hardware itself is working? Basic idea is that why touch something when it's working just fine and it's not breaking, right? So that's why I think they are taking the hybrid cloud model. Now the Reddit has, of course, a few more nuances to add. The circle of life, usually one executive gets promoted for kicking off the mainframe data center. 4 years later, a new executive gets promoted for killing the effort and saving company millions of dollars. So again, this is also one valid comment that this doesn't sound like an Azure issue. Nobody says that Azure is not, it's not good enough or cloud is not good enough. enough. It's more of a issue with legacy tools and getting those to run well without spending huge amounts of money for little gain. Because it's just that, right? If it's that particular thing is working, why do you have to modify it, touch it? It's even scaling. At LinkedIn's point, I'm not sure, like, it's not scaling. LinkedIn doesn't go down every couple of days looking at you GitHub. But yeah, that's the case, right? So if it takes you like a multi-year effort to move something to cloud, there has to be a good benefit associated to it, right? Otherwise it doesn't make sense. Again, one interesting comment where somebody says that MSN.com crashed Windows Server 2000 and they had to revert back to Linux. So yeah, I mean, Linux is the most popular OS out there or kernel out there to create servers. Not exactly related, but I just found the comment funny. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. What do you think about Microsoft and LinkedIn and clouds in general? Of course, as individuals, we have no other option to host other than on cloud. But are you working in a company or a startup which have their own data centers or some form of physical servers? Let me know in the comments below. That's all for this video. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one really soon.